I was reading about the history of physics recently, and there's this obsession that just runs through the whole field. It's the theory of everything.
The Holy Grail.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, physicists have spent, nearly a century trying to find one single elegant equation that unites everything. Quantum mechanics, the really small stuff with gravity, the really big stuff.
Right.
They just want one rule that explains the vibration of an atom and, the rotation of a galaxy all at once.
It's the ultimate search for coherence, really. Trying to prove that the universe isn't just a mess of random laws, but a single unified system.
Right. But today, we are taking that massive cosmic ambition and we are dropping it somewhere, a little unexpected. We're looking at a source that argues the exact same laws that keep the planet spinning are the laws that determine whether you and your spouse are actually happy.
It is a fascinating pivot.
Yeah.
We're diving deep into a lecture called God in My Home, delivered by Reverend Sun Myung back in April 1982. And I have to say, regardless of where you stand theologically or, what you even know about the speaker, the argument itself is just. It's incredibly ambitious. He's essentially doing metaphysics with a slide rule.
That is the perfect way to put it. So the mission for this deep dive is to unpack this very specific cosmological worldview. It's a view where the flight path of Apollo 11 and the way you ask for toilet paper in the bathroom are actually governed by the exact same principle.
He connects the macro to the micro in a way that's, it's very distinct. It's a system where physics, theology, and family counseling are all the same subject.
So buckle up. We're going from subatomic particles to relationship advice. Let's start with the basics. The source begins with a question that sounds like it belongs in a physics class. How does the universe move?
Right. It's a really fundamental question. Does it move randomly?
Yeah.
Does it move in straight lines? And the answer in the text is that movement only happens through this principle of give and take.
Okay.
Give and take between what he calls dual essentialities.
All right. Dual essentialities. That sounds like some pretty heavy jargon. Let's unpack that.
It's actually a pretty observable concept. The lecture argues that nothing in the universe exists in isolation. Existence is relationship. Everything has a counterpart, a subject and an object, or a plus and a minus.
We see this in science class, right? You have protons and electrons. You have the north and south poles of a magnet.
Exactly. But the source extends this immediately beyond just physics. He says you see it in the animal kingdom with male and female, and you see it in humans. But here's the key. Simply having opposites isn't enough.
Okay.
I mean, I can have a battery on the table and a light bulb on the shelf. They're opposites technically, but nothing is happening.
They're not connected.
Right. The source makes a really distinct point that these opposing forces, centrifugal and centripetal plus and minus, they don't exist to fight each other. They exist to harmonize. When they interact, they create a circuit. They don't crash. They turn.
And this is where the source uses that really cool visual, the thing that helped me understand the turning part. Apollo 11.
Yes, the moon landing.
He points out that when the spaceship went into orbit, or when it traveled to the moon, it didn't fly in a straight line.
Of course not.
It moved in a curve. And the argument is that this curved line that represents the natural turning action of the universe, straight lines are almost unnatural in this view.
It's all about circular motion. If you look at an atom, electrons spin around the nucleus. If you look at the solar system, planets orbit the sun. And the source says this happens because there is a center.
And in this worldview, what is that center?
The source posits that God is the core or the generator of all this universal movement. So just like a motor needs a plus and a minus to spin, the universe needs these dual characteristics to function. The argument is that God possesses these dual characteristics internally and initiates the motion.
So everything is spinning because of this high-speed interaction between plus and minus. But then the text asks a logical question, almost like a riddle. Which came first, energy or motion?
And this is a really crucial logical step in the lecture. He's building a chain of cause and effect. The speaker argues that action requires energy. You can't move without fuel. That's just basic physics.
Okay.
But then he asks, where does energy come from? Well, energy requires a relationship. You can't have electricity without the tension between a plus and a minus. So relationship precedes energy, and energy precedes action.
Which leads to this really profound why of existence. I mean, if a relationship is the foundational building block of reality, then nothing exists for itself.
It's a complete rejection of solitary existence.
Right.
And the speaker uses these great biological examples to prove it. He says, look at your nose. It's right there on your face. But does your nose exist to smell itself?
I mean, I really hope not.
No, of course not. It smells things outside of you. It exists for the environment.
He also mentions the hands, too. Your hands aren't there to serve themselves. They're there to handle things to serve others. And my favorite example, singing. You don't usually sing just for your own ears.
And the humor in the text is actually really revealing here. He paints this picture. Imagine you're walking down the street just laughing hysterically, but there is absolutely nothing around you. No person, no event, nothing.
People would think you're having a breakdown.
Exactly. He says people will think you are crazy. And why? Because there is no object. You are a subject acting without an object.
But then he flips it.
He says if you're laughing at a little piece of chalk, just a tiny piece of chalk on the ground, you're justified.
Because there's an object. The chalk makes it okay.
The chalk justifies the laughter. It's a funny image, but the philosophical point is heavy. Selfishness existing only for oneself is contrary to universal truth. He calls it self-destructive because it violates that fundamental law that existence requires a partner.
So we've got this baseline. Everything needs a partner, a counterpart, to create motion. Now here's where it gets really interesting for anyone thinking about their own relationships. The source applies this whole plus and minus idea to compatibility.
Yes, the concept of harmony through contrast.
This part is wild. Because it goes against so much modern dating advice. You know, usually we think, oh, we both love pizza and hiking, we're a perfect match. This source says, no, that's just repetition.
Right. He uses the metaphor of the four directions and the four seasons. You can't have east without west. You can't just love spring and hate winter. To survive, you have to embrace the whole cycle.
And he applies this directly to the matching, the arranged marriage process he was famous for. He actually explains why he matches couples who seem completely opposite.
He explicitly says a small, cute woman shouldn't necessarily be with another small, cute man.
Which sounds just like personal preference, but he frames it as a universal law.
He argues that if you put two small, cute people together, that's too much sameness. He says she needs a masculine, muscular man, and a spring-type personality needs an autumn-type one.
It's the idea that you need to fill in the gaps.
Exactly. If you are both spring, who is going to handle the winter? You need the full cycle represented in the union to be complete.
He even has a theory about eyes. This part cracked me up, but it's so consistent with his logic. He says parents with big eyes might produce children with monstrous eyes if they aren't balanced by a partner with small eyes.
It is a funny image, monstrous eyes, but he actually adds a psychological layer to it.
Yeah.
He claims that small eyes are for seeing deeply, perceiving the essence, while big eyes notice the surface, the breadth.
So by combining them, you get the whole picture.
Depth and breadth. Harmony through contrast. The goal isn't to find your mirror image, it's to find the part of the circle that you're missing.
So you have these opposites, spring and autumn, big eyes and small eyes, but what actually makes them want to engage? Because usually opposites can just annoy each other.
That's where the control mechanism comes in. Love.
But the source defines love in a very specific, almost mechanical way.
Yes. It's not just a feeling, it's a biological trigger. He brings up nature again. He says when birds are chirping in the morning, they aren't just making noise, they're signaling, come and control me with love. They want to be governed by that force because it's the only way to unite.
And then he drops this massive biological claim about humans. He asserts that the human body has 40 billion cells.
Roughly correct for the time, yeah.
And he claims that usually these cells are just sort of idling. But when a person falls in love, all 40 billion cells wake up.
They ignite. He describes it as a total activation. Your hearing gets sharper, your vision gets clearer, you have more energy. It's like the entire city grid turning on at once.
And because this is such a massive energy event, the source compares it to the thrust of an Apollo rocket.
Which brings us to the warning.
Right. Because if you have a rocket engine, you can't just light it in your backyard whenever you feel like it. It's incredibly dangerous. The speaker argues that because this power, this love, is so immense, using it prematurely causes damage. It can burn you out or, destroy the very structure you're trying to build.
He interprets the biblical tree of knowledge story through this lens. He says it wasn't a rule about eating a piece of fruit. It was a warning against igniting that rocket engine, engaging in sexual love before the guidance system was installed.
And he contrasts this with the culture of the time. Remember, this is 1982. He mentions visiting Miami Beach and seeing hippies.
The kissing story.
He observes a couple kissing for 30 minutes straight in public. And to him, this is shocking. He views it as animalistic, not because he hates affection, but because he sees it as an affront to the universe. They're burning that cosmic rocket fuel purely for physical sensation without the spiritual structure to contain it.
So you have this rocket fuel, but you need a containment structure, a guidance system. And this brings us to the geometry of the lecture. This is probably the most technical part, but it really explains the whole worldview. It is the central framework. Yeah. He asks us to visualize two axes. You have the vertical axis and the horizontal axis.
Okay, let's break those down. What's the vertical?
The vertical axis represents the relationship between the self and God. It's the mind, the spirit. It goes up and down. It's your anchor.
And the horizontal?
The horizontal axis represents the relationship between husband and wife. The body, the physical. It goes left and right.
And the magic happens where they cross.
Precisely. These two axes must meet at a 90-degree angle. That intersection point is marriage. That is the home.
But there's a strict rule about the order of operations here. You can't just build the horizontal line first.
No. The source is absolutely adamant. You must perfect the vertical love, your connection to the divine, to a higher purpose, before you engage in the horizontal love.
This leads to some advice for engaged couples that sounds, well, pretty unromantic by modern standards. He tells them to basically ignore each other during the engagement period.
It sounds harsh, but look at the geometry. If they focus only on each other, they're just a horizontal line floating in space. They have no anchor. He wants them to focus on God first, the vertical, so that when they do come together, they're meeting at a true, stable center.
If you don't have the vertical, the horizontal will just drift away.
And eventually collapse, yeah.
This really explains the training methods mentioned in the text. I think a lot of people have heard about things like fundraising or the challenges folks in this movement went through, but the lecture reframes them completely.
Yes. Most people would see fundraising as, well, collecting money. It's transactional. But the speaker reframes it as spiritual weightlifting. He says fundraising isn't about the dollar bill. It's training to love strangers. It's training to overcome your own ego.
And even persecution, when people are yelling at you or being hostile.
He frames that as emotional endurance training. His logic is, if you can love an enemy who is screaming at you on the street, you can certainly handle it when your spouse says something harsh in the kitchen.
That's a fascinating reframing. It's like emotional boot camp for marriage. If you can handle the macro hostility, the micro conflicts are easy.
It creates a resilient subject who can handle any object.
Speaking of resilience, the speaker uses his own life as an example of this. He talks about adaptability. He has this great story about Coke versus wine.
Oh yeah, it's a classic example of what he calls subjectivity. He claims he can go to a party where everyone is drinking wine, but he'll just drink Coca-Cola. And yet, he says he feels more intoxicated on the atmosphere than the people drinking alcohol.
Because his senses aren't numbed. He's high on the social vibe.
It's an example of mastering the environment. He mentions his time in prison in North and South Korea. He refuses to adopt the identity of a victim. Instead, he says he became a leader in jail.
It's this idea that no matter where you put him, a party, a prison, a construction site, he adapts and becomes the center of harmony. He doesn't let the environment change him, he changes the environment.
And he extends this identity to his listeners. He calls them Moonies, reclaiming the term that was often used as a slur, and tells them to take pride in it. The argument is, if you are living by this universal law of living for others, then the universe itself protects you.
He says even the grass and trees welcome you, which again takes us back to this idea that nature is somehow watching how we behave.
Which leads us to the culmination of the whole lecture. We've had the physics, the geometry, the training. Now we get to the biology of the love seed.
The love seed. It sounds poetic, but he breaks it down structurally again.
He describes a seed. It has an outer shell, which represents the universe or God's protection. Inside, it has the plus and minus, the potential for life. But it can't grow on its own. It needs the right environment. Soil, moisture, warmth.
Those are the horizontal conditions.
Right, and humans are meant to be these love seeds. We have the potential, but we need the environment of the home to sprout.
And here's the theological climax, the part that really answers the title, God in My Home.
The source argues that God, being a subject, needs an object. God cannot be solitary either, based on the very laws of physics we talked about earlier.
So God needs a home.
Exactly. God is like the radio signal, but the family is the receiver. A united family where that vertical axis and horizontal axis meet perfectly becomes the actual dwelling place of God. It's not that God is up in the clouds. God lands at that intersection.
This makes the practical advice at the end so surprising. After all this talk of galaxies and rocket ships and vertical axes, he talks about tissue paper.
The bathroom example. It just grounds the whole thing.
He asks, when the toilet paper runs out, do you shout for your spouse to bring it, or do you, as the spouse, bring it willingly?
He says you shouldn't serve out of duty. You shouldn't serve because you have to. You should serve to create that center. When a husband and wife serve each other, massage each other, bring the tissue paper, they are creating the landing pad for the divine.
It effectively sacralizes the most mundane domestic moments.
It removes the distinction between the holy and the domestic. In this worldview, passing the tissues is a cosmic act if it's done with the right vertical alignment.
So let's just recap this journey because it is quite a ride. We started with the centrifugal force of atoms.
We moved through the curved flight path of Apollo 11 to understand circular motion.
We looked at the biological explosion of 40 billion cells when you fall in love and why that needs a guidance system.
We constructed the geometry of the vertical and horizontal axis God first, then spouse.
And we ended up in a bathroom handing over tissue paper, which turns out to be the landing spot for the creator of the universe.
It's a worldview where physics and family are identical. It's all a quest for that harmonious circular motion.
It really challenges the way we compartmentalize our lives. You know, we usually think, here's my science, here's my religion, and over here's my relationship. This source says, no, it's all one equation.
And that equation is existence is for others.
There's one thought from the lecture that I just can't get out of my head. The speaker suggests that if you actually live this way, if you align yourself with these laws, nature itself recognizes you. He says the grass and the trees say amen when you walk by.
It's a powerful image. The idea that the environment isn't passive, it's responsive to your moral state.
It leaves you with a question that's worth mulling over. When you walk into your home or you talk to your partner, do you view that relationship as having that kind of cosmic weight? Does the universe say amen to your marriage?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.
My pleasure.
We'll see you next time.